So I've been the director of admissions at UCLA for about 4 years now. Prior to that, of all places, I worked in the admission office at USC for 7 years. Before that, I worked in the admission office at Pitzer College out in Claremont for 6 years. And then before that, a long time ago, I worked in the admission office at the College of William and Mary back in Virginia. I grew up in Virginia, moved out to California in '99, and have been here ever since. So I love it here. I'm a Californian. I don't even mind the traffic anymore. That's a lie, but I have to say that. But I really have enjoyed my time in California. I share a little bit about my professional background so that as I'm talking about our admission process, which is really what I want to focus on with you this afternoon, you understand that I can give a little bit of perspective to what we do and how it's similar or different from other institutions. And I'll kind of give the big reveal. It's more similar than it is different to every other institution that I've been a part of. Even a small liberal arts college like Pitzer, the way we read applications and make admission decisions is much more similar between those two schools than you might imagine. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I went to a place called Christopher Newport University, which very few people outside of Virginia have heard of, and really have never had any professional door not open for me because people didn't recognize the name of my undergraduate alma mater. So I think, again, to echo what Rob said, you make you great. You're a big part of what makes these institutions so special. So don't think that it's just them imparting their value on you, but it's you contributing something to the undergraduate institution that you'll be a part of. So I want to, as I said, talk a little bit specifically about the admission process at UCLA and maybe the UCs in general. And I'll add some character of some of the private institutions I've worked at as a part of those remarks. But the first thing to understand about us at UCLA, the volume is a little scary, and there's just no way around that. So we had 97,000 students, freshman applicants for admission this past year, 22,000 transfer applicants. So a total of 119,000 students applied for admission at UCLA this past year. That's a lot. It's a whole lot. It's more than anybody else in the country. I don't really say that as a form of pride, to be honest with you. We're not excited about that. We don't brag about that. That's not something that we thump our chest and say, hey, look at us. It's just a fact of the matter that this is a remarkable institution. We're in a very populous state. We get a lot of interest from students in California and around the world. And I think I'm happy that so many students are interested in our institution, but that volume certainly creates some challenges for us. And the biggest challenge is really maintaining this commitment that we have to a holistic undergraduate admission process. We care deeply about every part of the application. Believe me, with 119,000 apps, there isn't a lot of fluff in the application. Everything that's there matters. It contributes something to the admission decision. Otherwise, we wouldn't ask. We wouldn't ask you to provide that information if it wasn't valuable to us in some way. There is one application for the UC system. And this is something that you'll become familiar with, but you'll start to get to hear these other terms like the common application. The common application is an application that's accepted by most private colleges and universities in the country, and a growing number of public institutions utilize the common application as well. We are not a part of the common application. The UC application is its own thing. You use this application, you fill it out electronically, you submit it one time, and it goes to whichever of the 9 undergraduate campuses you choose to apply to. So it allows you to just do one app and apply to as many of the institutions as you'd like. You have to pay a separate application fee for each school. You could apply to 9. I think that would be kind of crazy, but you could apply to 9. But it's up to you to determine how many of those campuses that you want to apply to. The deadline is November 30th. The application's open now, so for you seniors, you're able to start working on the UC application right now. You can't submit it until the month of November, but you can begin working on it and preparing and getting familiar with it in time to click submit. But that eases things for you a little bit. So you're filling out one application for the UC, maybe you're filling out the common app for a number of institutions you might apply to there. Many private schools have a supplement to the common application which you'll fill out that is specific to that institution. So when I worked at SC, we accepted the Common App, but we had a supplement to the Common App that was specific to our university. So we asked a couple of additional like short answer questions and asked students to provide some additional information so that we could understand your fit with our institution and not just seeing all the common information that you might provide in an application. So for the UCs, you fill out the one application, you click submit by November 30th, and that's when we really begin our work. And I'm going to talk about the freshman process here. I'm not going to talk much about the transfer. I'm happy to answer questions about that later, but I figured you want to really hear a little bit more about the freshman process. So once you click submit on the application, the information is disseminated to each of the campuses that you might have applied to. It goes up to the Office of the President first in Oakland, and then they disperse the information out to each of the campuses you apply to. When you apply to UCLA, I could care less where else you've applied. And I say that because I don't want anybody to leave this room thinking that there's any kind of information sharing amongst the UCs. I'm not calling my counterpart at Berkeley and saying, hey, you taking this one? All right, we're going to, like, none of that kind of stuff happens. So you're being considered as an individual student for each campus that you've applied to. There's no sharing of information when it comes to the decisions that we're going to be making. But even with the volume that we have at UCLA, every application is read at least twice before a decision is made. And I mean read. Again, if all we cared about were GPA and SAT scores, we could fill our class with an Excel spreadsheet in an hour and save ourselves a lot of trouble. Be easy to do. If all that mattered were numbers, we could start and end with a Microsoft Office tool and fill our class. But that's not the kind of process that our faculty wants us to run. They are interested in looking for students that are going to come to UCLA and continue to make this place special. And we cannot figure that out by just looking at a couple of numbers. You're much more than a set of numbers. Now, what are the things that we are looking at? What are the things that we consider and care about in the admission process? Well, certainly the backbone of any application is your grade, are your grades and your curriculum in high school. So if I were to talk about this from a deficit standpoint, the most difficult deficit to overcome in our admission process would be poor performance in the classroom. So if the grades aren't there, if you're not taking the kind of rigorous program that's going to make you competitive in our process, then that's going to be a challenge. Because that's the thing that is most indicative of student success on our campus. We can see from the data that when we look at students with unweighted, weighted GPAs, APs, honors classes, these kinds of things, we can see that the quality of success, the level of success that that student achieves once they're enrolled at UCLA is directly tied to the quality of work they've done in their high school program. So I think we're certainly going to look for that in the process. So I think for those of you that are in your senior year, you're going to report out to us in the application, what are the grades and curriculum that you've taken in high school. For those of you that are a little bit earlier in high school, my advice to you is challenge yourself. Push yourself a little bit academically. Take those rigorous classes, honors, AP, IB classes that are available to you. Now, here's where the admission counselor part of me is going to talk out of both sides of my mouth, okay? So I'm going to tell you on one hand, and this is as honest as I can be, we admitted 18% of the students that applied last year. If you want to be competitive in our process, you need to have really taken a rigorous program in high school. You need to take advantage of those honors, AP, and IB classes. The counselor part of me is going to tell you, please don't push yourself too much. And what I mean by that is you gotta have a life. You gotta take some time to get involved outside of class, do some things that you love, do some things, and I hate to counter one thing Rob said, but everything you do isn't about how it looks on a college application. Do something stupid just because it's dumb. You're a teenager. When you're in your 20s, dumb means a whole lot more than it does right now. So take the time to do the things that you love. And yes, find things that you love that maybe you can talk about in a college application, but don't let the motivation, is one of the things that, a question I get a lot is, well, what type of service should I be involved in? Good grief, the one that you care about. I don't want you to go out and do service because you're checking off a box on an application. I want you to do it because you care about the people that you're serving. You care about, whatever community is that you're committing yourself to. So I want you to find that balance. And I think you can find that balance if you really develop a college list that isn't just places that have our level of selectivity. Because regardless of how well you've done, this process is going to be inherently unpredictable. When you have things that are qualitative and quantitative, you can't always predict the outcome. So do the things that you love, do the things that you care about, apply to a broad range of schools where you've got some that you're confident that you're going to be admitted to those institutions and you know you could thrive and do well there. You're going to take a lot of stress out of this process. So that's the part where I'm like, be a teenager, do some fun things. You know, it's not all about, because I think what's happening now is we have more and more students are now young people, you know, people who are, you know, well into their late 20s and early 30s. And high school is all about getting into the right college. Your undergraduate program is all about getting into the right MBA or JD or, you know, or medical school. And then you wind up in your adulthood working, or you have a family and you look back and you're like, I didn't really have fun. I didn't really get to be a kid. It was all about get the next step, you know, maximize that next opportunity. So find that balance. So that just do what you can to really find that balance. So certainly, as I said, the backbone of the application is going to be the academic work that you've done, the strength of the curriculum and the grades that you earn there. If you stumbled a little bit early on, are you dead in the water? Absolutely not. We do look at trends. We do want to see if you stumbled early on that you're on the right track going into senior year. Now, UC is a little unique in the sense that our UC GPA is based on sophomore and junior year. So you're going to report your freshman grades in the application, but the freshman grades don't impact that UC GPA. You're going to report the classes that you're taking in your senior year, but in the initial decision, whatever grades you're earning in those is not going to impact the admission decision. Okay, so it's really just sophomore and junior year that those grades are the ones that we're going to be paying closest attention to. Now, for every other institution that I've been a part of, strike that comment. At every other place I've been, we're looking at everything. Freshman, sophomore, junior, first semester, senior year, all of it matters. So, word to the wise, it all matters. So just push yourself and make sure that you're doing well in each of those areas. Certainly as a senior, don't take your foot off the gas pedal at the end of the process, because I, to be honest, today rescinded an admission offer for a student who in their last semester got a couple of Fs. So just one, you know, getting admitted isn't the end of the process. You got to finish strong. You got to finish in the way that gained you admission to begin with. So make sure that you push through to the end there. When it comes to things outside of class, what should you be involved in? What I said before, do what you love. Do the thing that you care about. And what I would say is it's not the length of the resume that matters as much as it is the depth of commitment to the things that you do that really stands out to us. So we like to see students who are sticking with it, you know, doing something and doing it over a long period of time. You know, don't all of a sudden in your senior year decide I'm going to get in the Spanish club and I'm going to join the yearbook and I'm going to do all these things because we're going to see through that. You know, we want to see longevity, we want to see commitment, because to be honest, the reason why we care about those things is we want to know what kind of member of the community are you going to be on our campus. Are you going to be somebody who gets involved, grows, takes on progressive leadership and responsibility, and really commits yourself to whatever activities you might be involved in? So that pattern is kind of what we're looking for in high school. The myth of the well-rounded applicant. Everybody thinks we're looking for well-rounded applicants. Well, sure, I've got nothing against a student who is well-rounded, but I also have nothing against a student who is perfectly lopsided. A student who they've got these one or two things that they are passionate about that. They love doing research and they've thrown themselves into this kind of research. They've been involved in this particular service program for a number of years and they've committed themselves to that. Great. Don't join things disingenuously because you're trying to pad your resume. Now, I'm not saying just stop at one thing, but, you know, find the balance again. Find the things that you love and commit yourself to those things. Think less about what it is that I want to see and more about what it is that you want to say. What are the things that you really want us to know about you? What are the things you care about? And be sure that you're really pouring yourself into those kinds of activities in high school. Standardized testing. Boy, So we require that you take either the SAT or the ACT. We have no preference which one you take. If you take them both, whichever one you do better on is the score that we're going to consider in the decision-making process. We've got the new